Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm talking about the latest episode of Doom Patrol. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, there's a whole situation I thought was kind of interesting with Cliff, who's still trying to find the tape of, Niles admitting everything. I'm wondering why. I guess for him, it's like, I need to keep holding on to my hate for you, so I need that to be a constant reminder. Or maybe he has plans of taking that tape to his daughter to get her more on his side. I don't know, why he was so desperately trying to find that tape. But whatever the case may be, I also love that literally that sex ghost situation still hasn't been dealt with fully. I thought the Sex Men completely dealt with that. It's like, no. And I even love Cliff and Cyborg looking at it. It's like, oh, I guess it's kind of like the new normal now. I guess just randomly from time to time we'll see ghosts banging in the background. I was like, okay, I love that. But the fact of the matter is, Cliff comes across all the different designs the chief has, and he's like, whoa, where are you planning on doing this? It's like, well, basically these are designs to kind of upgrade you. He's like, is this a trick? He's like, after everything we've been through, I think we've been through too much for there to be any type of trickery. So at the end of the day, what it comes down to, it's like he's throwing out random ideas, gotta poop out all the nonsense ideas before he lays that golden egg. And it's like all he wants to do is kind of give Cliff his sense of touch back. And obviously that means a lot for Cliff, because Cliff is like, I have these memories of oh yeah, what it's like to hold my arm out and let the rain fall on, but the sensation, I don't remember that. Or putting my hands through my fingers through my wife's hair, I know it felt amazing, but beyond that, I remember, yet I don't remember. And obviously he looks at Cliff, and he looks at Cyborg, and it's like Vic remembers. He's able to feel in touch, so he's wanting to meet up with Silas to see if you can do something about that. And I love that they're walking while they're doing all this and stuff like that. And I love Cliff's perspective on it being come on, this could be the biggest basically he's like, this could be the biggest comeuppance you can give Chief, being doing something bigger and better than he could, But obviously, and I thought was really interesting, Silas's perspective, where it's basically what he did for Vic was to save Vic's life, to save his son's life. But what Niles did to you was nothing short of manslaughter, and if I do anything to help you, it's just going to be making me an accessory to it, because I'm just going to be adding more fuel to the fire that he already started when he did this to you. So he's like, I won't do that. And I just thought it was such an interesting perspective to it, because it would just be because for him it's just adding on to the it makes him complicit with Niles, the terrible stuff that Niles done. So I thought that was so interesting. But I also thought it was kind of neat when Vic and him are outside waiting on because he's there to visit Ronnie, but you have Cliff being like, whoa, we're on a stakeout? He's like, dude, no, we're on patrol or whatever. He's like, the fact of the matter is, he's like, we could be Steel and Stone, and that could be their superhero team and everything like that. And I love that. And he's kind of really into it and everything. And while, Cyborg ends up making up with Ronnie, I love that montage we got. It's that guy's trying to... It's he stabs what he thinks is just a lady, and it turns out it's actually Cliff in streetwear and a wig. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then Vic coming out, I'm like, this 70s... I assume 70s or 80-ish, cop show they're doing. I'm like, I love this. And just the wackiness of it, I'm like, why don't you just act come on, make that a thing. I was like, this looks so dumb and so good and cheesy. I love it, dude. It was so damn good. I was like, oh my god, this looks so much fun. The shenanigans that they would get into, and just the whole fact of the matter, it's just that weird scene where Vic is showering and he's pointing the gun at Cliff, and Cliff is outside, in the locker room, and they're both laughing, ha ha ha. And it's just and then the Chief, Niles as the Chief, and it's just the title card intros and everything. It was so good. I loved it. It was so good. I wish we could get more like that. I wish that was because I wish that wasn't just all in Cliff's head. I wish that was a reality thing. Somebody might mess with reality and made it a thing. I saw a picture referencing that scene, And I thought that's what it was. I thought like someone made like alterations to reality, and they were playing certain roles or something. That's why I think it is. I thought maybe it had something to do with Dorothy or something. So when I saw that, like I said, a single image from this episode, I thought that, but it turned out not to be the case. But I was like, dude, I wish there was like more of that. I wish it wasn't just that segment. I'm gonna go back and rewatch that, just that part alone, just because I loved it so much. And I love Cliff trying to be like, oh my god, these guys are breaking into the car. I'm about to do my superhero thing. And he knocks the other dude out, and he's about to hit the other dude, but his body's malfunctioning. He's like, damn it, not now. And the guy gets in the car. He's like, no. I was like, oh, this sucks. The guy's going to get away and everything. But it's like Cliff closes the door, but the guy's finger gets sliced off. It's flying in the air. And Cliff's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. That wasn't me. That was my arm. He's like, I'm so sorry. And then he sees the guy's finger, and he's like, oh. And he just puts it in his pocket. It's like, well, this could be the beginning stages. I mean, because it's interesting because Chief was like, oh, be patient. He's like, you're telling me to be patient and wait on a guy who's dying. This wouldn't be that much of a problem if this was beforehand, when you had your ability to kind of still keep aging and not die. You had your semi-immortality. Now you're mortal and you can die, and we have no idea when you're going to drop dead. So it's like, yeah, he's not really all that keen on being patient. Which is so interesting because I figured as much. I thought that was going to be an interesting element to it. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to hate him as much, especially when he's working on trying to give you your touch back. But obviously Cliff is not going to wait around forever for that, to kind of want to be human again. But since we touched on the cyborg stuff, I thought it was interesting the nightmare that he had, and I feel like maybe there's more to that. It's obviously he had that dream where it's like, so what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to try this out. And like she lifts up her arm, and she has like, the cannon like he does, and she fires it. Well, him and her are firing it at the same time, and it's like, I was like, I'm wondering if that's supposed to be a little foreshadowing because she talks a little bit to Vic about her past, because obviously like what she showed him in the file, she even said that's not even the worst of it, because for her it's like, it turns out like some of the burns she has is from like, well, the reason why her skin's the way it is because of the military, but also it turns out she worked with a group that she either had the choice to try and come back home and find a normal life, or kind of take care of some quiet work for this company. I'm assuming when I assume quiet work meaning like pure straight up hits. Like I think she was an assassin, and basically because of this, they gave her enhancements. But because she said like she messed up so badly, they took them all away. Now I guess maybe it's like she botched an assassination and it became an international thing, so to cover their ass they kind of like blacklisted her type of situation. I don't know, maybe all the marks on her body aren't necessarily from like any like burns or anything like that, from like, well, she said it came from an IED, but part of me wonders like, could some of it be from that, but could others be from them removing the enhancements? And questions, it becomes like, well, what were those enhancements? So for her, she's done a lot of stuff, and obviously, Vic tries to make her feel better by reiterating what she said, that someone shouldn't be defined for the worst thing they've done. But for her, it's like, yeah, but she kind of feels like, what if you haven't left that behind? She kind of felt like because she hopes she's not a bad person. She doesn't want to be a bad person, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, what if I don't really have much? It's like, what if I can't 100% escape who I was? And so that makes me put that nightmare he had in perspective of like, obviously maybe it's not the same thing, but maybe that's kind of foreshadowing that maybe, just maybe, the way Ronnie is now, she won't always be that way, because maybe something will come up that'll kind of turn her back into who she was before. If she somehow manages to get the enhancements back, and the person she became then that she's not fond of kind of reappears, and it kind of puts her and Vic at odds. That was kind of an element I was wondering about. So we'll kind of have to wait and see on that front. Another interesting aspect to this episode is the Larry situation. I also love the whole like Rita thing. Like obviously, like it was something I brought up when I was talking about the trailer. Like how Rita, it seemed like everyone else kind of had stuff that they were kind of potentially dealing with. Rita's the only one who didn't see. Well, I think at the time Rita nor Larry really seemed like they had any baggage to deal with in the trailer. Obviously, as the season's going on, we've seen that's not the case. But Rita, it's like she's like the last episode unlocked some deep dark memories about like her mom doing whatever it takes for her career, and I think it's just, well, in particular for Rita's career, but I think it's just like because she even kind of goes over it this episode, the fact of the matter is she's so desperate to kind of prove her mom wrong of like, I made it, mom, I did this, I'm kind, because her and her mom had just, even with her mom not being around anymore, she even says that later on that like, oh, she's being haunted. I love that, skipping around a little bit, I love that you're literally at a family get together, someone else's family get together, and you're kind of taking over the conversation, talking about your baggage, about you and your mom, and it's just like, oh, your mom haunts you and stuff like that. I just thought that was kind of interesting because like Paul's son is just kind of like, oh yeah, let me go inside to get the ketchup, and then it says she's talking to his Paul's grandson and being like, she's like, don't ever let your dad squash your dreams or whatever, and the kid's just almost looking like, what? And she's like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I got the job. I thought I didn't get it, but actually I got it, because it turns out, what was it? They all did something and now they've all got mono. And I love that literally after she said that, she cracks a smile because she's like, oh, it's mine. Yay me, yay me. It's just like, oh, like despite everything, Rita's not completely, Gertrude again. She still bits of Rita still resonate, and I'm guessing that's going to be kind of her thing, because obviously she's always struggling being like, no, what if I don't want to be Rita anymore? What if I don't want to be Rita Farr anymore? What if I want to be myself again? And it's like, well, after being Rita for so long, it's like, how this persona you created, or in particular your family created for you, it's like, at what point does it no longer become a persona and it is just purely who you are, So that ends up being a complicated thing. Obviously, Larry's there, and obviously his son introduces like, oh, Paul's like, oh, hey, this is your grandfather, and he ends up hugging Larry too. But then later on, he kind of makes some snide remarks where you're like, because it turns out like Gary, the whole conspiracy theory thing wasn't just his. That was actually Cheryl's. She's actually the one that kind of got him into all of that. And it's like, oh, she actually lived here for a while? And he's like, really? I didn't know that. He's like, why would you know that? You weren't here. So you're like, that was kind of like a backhanded thing, and Larry just kind of feels it. So Rita's telling him just to kind of take this time and both of you kind of speak your truth. Say what you need to say. Yell if you need to. Just kind of get it out there. At least this way you can basically kind of get all the baggage, all the things you need to say out there so you can heal. And Larry ends up talking to his son and is like going through some of the stuff. And then he kind of admits like, okay, this belonged to John, my lover. He's like, I'm gay. And it's like, oh, and his son's taken back from it. I was like, oh, please don't let it be that your son's homophobic. But it's like, oh, he's like, well, thanks for telling me. So it's like, yeah, it's like your mom didn't know. I never really, well, she knew, but she wasn't really 100% sure. He's like, I wish I had the courage to tell her sooner, because if I did, she could have been free. She could have lived her own life. And then, Paul kind of talks about like, how when they got the reports that Larry had died. I mean, to be fair, everything with Larry wasn't 100% on him. Like, sadly, because the Bureau of Normalcy got him, like, while he was recovering. So some of that time he was just kind of, he's, and he was, as we saw in season 1, we were looking back the days, like, with him and Flex, like how self-deprecating he was. He just like, it's almost like he like hated himself so much. He was like, I deserve this. I just want to be left alone, because he didn't want to be saved, because I think in his mind it's like, I don't deserve to be saved. I've just caused so much pain for everyone else. I deserve to be here. Just like whatever they do to me, it's like whatever, I don't care. I mean, it's a little self-preservation, but I think it's also because he felt like I need to be punished for everything. So, but you hear Paul kind of say, like, the fact of the matter is when mom heard that you died, like, there were guys here, there in her life, but the fact is there were days where she would just kind of, like, be spread out and cry. And obviously, like, he kind of left that behind and left Gary kind of swallowed up in all of that, because she met a dude named Wayne, got into all those conspiracy theories about what happened to him, what happened to Larry, and Gary got mixed up in all of that. I haven't thought, it was almost like this sweet moment, almost to a certain extent, like, where, like, it's like, oh, that little plane that we saw flashback earlier in the season where, like, Larry kind of chastised his kid about, like, Gary about, like, no, how about you go get the materials and we'll make this right, do it in it right. But it's like, Gary thought, like, his dad hated it, but finding out, like, oh, dad kept it, for him, it's like, yeah, he was like, it was perfect, but Larry was like, I was too much of an asshole to kind of recognize it at the time. But nevertheless, it's like, so all that family drama, and then the fact of the matter is, for Paul, he went into the military, wanted to, pay tribute to his hero father, and then it's just like, there was like a lot of resentment he held towards his brother and his mom for like their conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And it's like, he's like, basically he didn't realize how much he was holding on to until he got to he was there beside his brother's casket, and it's like, oh man, like he felt at peace until Larry showed up, and it made him realize, like, oh, I thought I was over it. I wasn't. To be fair, I mean, you've been holding a grudge against your dad for decades, and it's like that doesn't just go away overnight. And especially in that moment where it's like, oh, he felt peace, and then, you know, so it's kind of just terrible timing. It's like, when would have been a better time for Larry to show up? I mean, because Larry's just, you know, I mean, let's not forget, once again, Larry's just dealing with a lot of this stuff. He's kind of dealt with it over the years, but at the same time, he still had, you know, he's only come to terms with a lot about himself. Him and the negative spirit are kind of on the best of terms and everything, so there's a lot that Larry's kind of had to go through. But it turns out, like, he calls, like, we see the vehicles pulling up. I was like, is that the Bureau of Normalcy? Did he call them? And it's like, he's like, yeah, when you showed up, I found out what happened to you. It's time for you to go back to where you belong. It's like, what about the fact is that the government was keeping your dad the entire time and was keeping him as a prisoner, as a tool and a weapon to use? But once again, he's heated, he's pissed. So they're trying to capture him, and Larry releases his spirit. It attacks. Rita covers Paul's grandson, but his son Dax gets hit. And it's a situation where Larry's like, I'm sorry. He's like, but you're a curse on this family. Everywhere you go, this is all your fault. And it's just like, to be fair, who created the situation? You did. But you can make the argument for him. It's like, you did all this the moment. You should have never come back into our lives. I could have led a peaceful life. Now my son potentially might die. This is all you. And now this is going to weigh even heavier on Larry. So the spirit ends up grabbing Rita and Larry and bouncing. But it's like, oh boy. And obviously that also means the Bureau obviously probably never gave up on looking for Larry, but now they're definitely not going to they're just probably going to be adamant about, I mean, hell, for all we know, Paul's going to be adamant about going after Larry now because of all of this. So there's that whole complicated situation. And then finally, there's the other large chunk of this episode, and that deals with Jane and the Chief. The Chief is like, oh, kind of, can we go back to the way things were? But like, she's like, after everything that's going down, no. She's like, I don't have that drug anymore. But for her now, it's like she's in a position where literally every persona inside of her like hates her, because it's like she, like, everything they do, their entire purposes are to protect Kay. And she's like, I fucked up, you know. And then Baby Doll comes out, and she's just terrified of the Chief, and he apologizes. He's like, yes, you're right, I am evil, I am a bad person, but I want to try and make things better. And so Baby Doll, you know, crawls into his arms and everything. And I thought it was such an interesting thing, because I was like, because as the episode was progressing, I was like, she's been Baby Doll for a while, hasn't she? I feel like she's never one personality for, I mean, granted, who knows the grand scheme of like time frame over the course of the episode, because there have been instances, like obviously in one, like there's a good chunk of episodes, an episode last season, she was Penny when they were inside that when they were in Nurnheim, she's Penny for a lot of that. So it's like, you know, it just seemed like she was Baby Doll for a while. But obviously it's the whole thing of like, you know, Baby Doll and Dorothy hitting it off. And I thought it was kind of an interesting parallel they might have been creating, because it's like, Dorothy's like, no, I'm not a grown-up. You hear that statement, well, you could also make the argument that's actually kind of what Baby Doll's part in the play in all this too, is to kind of represent the innocence of Kay that was kind of taken from her. So it's almost kind of like not having to grow up either. So like, it's like both of them were kind of running from it at the same time. So I thought that was interesting. But then Baby Doll just kept going and going, because I think for Baby Doll, that's kind of her entire existence. Whereas like Dorothy has layers. It's like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to just kind of play all the time. It's cool in some points, but it was actually kind of adorable, because even Cliff was like, oh man, aren't they cute as shit? Like them playing and running around. But it's like, because that's Baby Doll 24/7. That's not Dorothy 24/7, because but like, once again, like that's kind of like, oh, this is what Baby Doll is meant to do. This is her existence. This is what she's meant to be. So she's that all the time. She's always on, you know? And so Dorothy shows her Manny. We finally get to know that one of her friends' names. I was like, okay, so he's Manny, the one that obviously came from her mom. But like Baby Doll kind of like scratched him or something. He went away. And she's like, and Dorothy was like, I told you to be polite, and she runs away. And then later on, there's just this whole thing. Like, I was wondering about this. I think I think when it's all said and done, like later on, Baby Doll kind of, you could see like Jane was kind of in control, making a sandwich and stuff like that. But then, like hearing Chief and Dorothy talk like that, it seemed like it pissed off Baby Doll. She kind of shifts in and kind of looks at him. I don't know whether that's a byproduct of like, wait, you were running from me. I thought we were friends, and you're trying to avoid me. Or two, it's like she was getting annoyed because it's like for such a long time, it's always her and the Chief have always had that type of relationship. So for someone else to kind of be like butting in on that, I don't think she liked that. So it's just kind of like, fine, just to hurt you because obviously you've been avoiding me. That's why I'm kind of wondering. She's your dad was a bad man, this and that, and it's like, stop lying, I'm not lying. Then it turns into a game of tag, but then like she scares Baby Doll, and then Baby Doll got scary and like used telekinesis. I was like, holy shit. I was like, I guess you do have a, like, I mean, because we've never seen that side of Baby Doll before, like, see her get mad like that. So I was like, oh, I mean, to be fair, every personality has powers. We just never got to see Baby Dolls until now because she just never used it. But it's like, that was so interesting for her to kind of fling Dorothy in there. And then, like, you know, she summons Manny, and obviously, like, another personality slips out and ends up killing Manny. I mean, granted, we don't know if he's permadead or not. I'm assuming, like, he got burned before fading, so he might be permadead, whatever the case may be. But then, like, Dorothy makes a wish. I was like, what the hell's going to happen? And in the moment, I was like, her wish is going to have something to do with the underground, because as she was running to hide, she looked at a map of the underground and was like, so it was already fresh in her mind. I was like, oh boy. And then we go inside of Jane's mind. The train stop. I was like, did she, because at first I was like, wait, did she destroy the connection between the underground and Jane's? I was like, what does that mean? I was like, what is that, what's happening? And it's like, no, Candlemaker is in the underground. And just like, it's like, whoa, holy crap. And he's coming after Baby Doll in particular. The others try to get in the way, but it ends up hurting, if not killing, like the fire one. It knocks Hammerhead aside and then straight up murders Baby Doll. You're like, whoa! And then it disappears because I think Baby Doll was the only one it wanted to hurt. It didn't want to hurt anyone else. It's like, I mean, this is a unique situation because this is the only second time this ever happened. I mean, it took the negative spirit to get Cliff in there, but to be fair, this Candlemaker's on a different level. Like, I mean, it has the power to grant wishes and everything, but it's like, it killed Baby Doll. So once again, in this moment, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Because this is at least one, maybe two personalities are dead. The other one might not be dead. It might just been like, oh, it got knocked out, so it got burned out. So it's like, it's burned out in the sense that like, oh, it's unconscious, so it's not burning all the time. But like, this means Baby Doll might be dead. Now, the thing is about the underground, it's like, each one of them serves their own purpose, sure, but they all represent like a different portion of, Kay's psyche. So it's like, if that portion of her psyche's gone, I think the underground has like an equilibrium, and that's what I was wondering, like, if one of those personalities die or gets moved out of the way, like, does a new one get created in its place? Because once again, there was the whole Miranda thing, but to be fair, because like, Jane already existed to some extent. So, but it seemed like Jane became the primary after Miranda, because Jane was just a name that Kay went by before the experiments and everything made it an actual thing. But you can make the argument like the new personalities exist because they were already a thing, just because of just how fractured her mind was. Regardless, my point is, like, what does this mean for the underground? Does it need a particular equilibrium? And now that potentially Baby Doll is dead, because it doesn't seem potential, it seems like she's straight up dead. If she's gone, does that mean that it throws the entire underground off kilter? Is it unstable? Does that mean like a new Baby Doll has to be made? Did another personality have to be created to fix that? Is there a way to revive Baby Doll? A lot of questions. I'm curious to see, what this looks like for Jane. What's going to happen with Dorothy? Like, it's like, wait, she killed Baby Doll. And it's like, how's, Niles going to feel about that? I mean, granted, he knows how dangerous, she can be. And now that Dorothy made a wish and the intoxication of it, it's like, now she's going to start going down a darker road. Like I said, regardless, I am very, very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.